and weak points of the unit. Unsatisfactory mark could require the 187 to undergo a recheck in 90 days. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
I want to know if I could ask you about
organization bill, including the possibility of two appointed commissioners.
Mr. Garner, I think that the legislature, in its wisdom,
Organization and various bills that have been proposed.
right, done. We still need to implement computer capabilities as in other states throughout the nation. We also need to continue to improve the commission rate-making capabilities until the day we can truly say that the Alabama Public Service Commission is as good as any other public service commission in the United States. I will campaign this year on that platform of continued improvement of the Alabama Public Service Commission, and I will pledge honest,
Montgomery County has the distinction of being the highest in 85 cases. We are a high volume term, and by January, for an opportunity again to serve the people of Montgomery and seeking to do everything possible in the area of law enforcement so that we may all live and work in a safe community.
as the People's Court. This is where the problems can be heard and solved for the citizens of this.
One fiscal year recently passed a judicial system and part of the state of Alabama's budget. We are adequately supplied, except you could count on it. If you were speeding, you were going to be caught. And
I feel that we've made many improvements on the technical expertise.
Is that right?
30,585.
Now, some of these cases, did you...
Two of us serving.
People have and the problems that people have, these are district court problems. Everything from traffic offense.
In one fiscal year recently passed,
Sheriff Hewlett didn't want to comment on the allegations in the warrant, except to say that he'll do his talking in court July 6.
The sheriff and his deputy denied menacing tax assessor Elbert Means last month. Means charged the sheriff held a closed-door meeting with 3 elected officials and 7 others at the courthouse after business hours. Sheriff Hewlett says he invited a few people to talk about his upcoming re-election campaign. Means says he thought a public meeting was going on and went inside the commission's office. Means says the sheriff told him to leave. It was a private meeting. He says after reporting the closed-door session to the district attorney's office and several other officials that he and Chief Deputy Julius Bennett exchanged words about the meeting, and Bennett threatened to blow him away. The sheriff and his chief deputy posted a $300 bond after the warrant was served today. He charges both officers with making and threatening gestures to draw a pistol on a public elected official. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Hayneville.
Attorney Thomas Thagard, representing the state, argued to the judges that the plan adopted by the legislature should be used temporarily until the problems raised by the Justice Department to certain black belt districts could be resolved.
On an interim basis, but it would become permanent where possible later. When as events unfolded and proved that the Justice Department didn't object or the court didn't find them unconstitutional, then those parts of it would become a 4-year term.
Thagard contends most of the plan has already been approved by the Justice Department, and he says the plan should be used as is, since the justice officials haven't specified what they consider objectionable. Thagard called any changes before those areas are specified surgery in the dark. But attorneys for the group of blacks contend their plan would be a better temporary effort, since it would not only solve racial problems, but would do a better job than the legislature's plan in addressing a state constitutional requirement to preserve county boundaries. But another point was brought out: protection of incumbents. The attorneys for the blacks say that is outweighed by the racial and state constitutional questions, but the state argued incumbents would be thrown to the wolves and that some 34 white House and 20 white Senate members would be pitted against each other under the blacks' plan. Even Judge Truman Hobbs said he could see the realistic problem of future legislators being unable to reapportion themselves if they knew they had to destroy their own district. The 3-judge panel said would expedite the decision in light of the difficulty of redrawing the precinct lines for voting in time for this year's elections. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Federal Courthouse.
Well, I think two issues that we're facing right now. Number one is property taxes are going to have to be equalized. I think that the homeowners of Montgomery County want to pay a fair property tax, and I think we're going to have to work on the equalization of the property taxes. Number two, everyone is concerned about crime, and I will work hard and strong for tougher crime laws, especially for He's with the Cattle Association. He's not in politics.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
I practice law. Number one is property taxes are going to have to be equalized. I think I imagine there'll be, I'm running as a Democrat, by the way. I wanted to tell you that. For good, aggressive leadership in the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm. What would you like if you are elected to the House of Representatives?
A formal part of the ceremony now, so.
After searching for a place to call home for several years, the Tumbling Waters Museum of Flags is now calling the Oak Hill Mansion on Clayton Street home. The mansion, which was built in 1898, is being renovated. The work is about 50% complete, and officials say it will be 2 or 3 months until it's open to the public. About 50 people attended today's dedication ceremonies for the museum. Neighbors in the Cottage Hill section of the city watched from their own porch. On the porch of the Oak Hill Mansion stood a national treasure, the first flag used when Americans pledged allegiance to their country. Charles Brannon, who conceived the idea of a museum dedicated to flags, says Montgomery should be proud to have a place that will house some international treasures. The museum is concerned with all aspects of flags. Members have developed revolutionary techniques for framing flags that are now used by the Smithsonian and other great museums. Board members of the museum know well that today's dedication ceremony and ribbon cutting is just one large step on a very long road. It's estimated that it will take between $50,000 and $100,000 to complete the renovation of the house alone. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
serve in classes, two-year term.
Both law enforcement officials posted a $300 bond after the warrant was served today. It charges the officers with menacing tax assessor Elbert Means after a closed-door meeting last month. Means says the sheriff, 3 local elected officials, and 7 others met after business hours. Sheriff Hewlett says he invited a few people to talk about his upcoming re-election campaign. Means says it was after the sheriff told him to leave the meeting that he and Deputy Bennett exchanged words, and Bennett threatened to blow him away. Means says he's got witnesses to back up his story. Hewlett and Deputy Bennett deny threatening Means. Court date has been set for July 6th. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Hayneville.
An attorney for the group of black voters say the court should use its plan as the temporary scheme until the legislature can use the blacks' plan as a base to redraw House and Senate districts early next year.
Well, one of the overriding considerations that we've had all along is to fashion a plan that recognizes the state constitutional provision that requires that to the minimum extent feasible, county boundary lines not be disturbed in fashioning these plans.
The black plan also increases significantly the number of potential blacks in the House and Senate. But the legislature's attorney, Thomas Thagard, says the black plan would discriminate against white incumbent legislators by pitting as many as 34 white House and 20 white Senate members against each other. Thagard argued the legislature's plan should be used temporarily because the Justice Department has approved 95% of it. Then he says the court can make whatever changes appear eminent next year and re-elect those legislators affected. Judge Truman Hobbs all but ruled out delaying the election or using the 1972 line, saying both options would only foster similar confusion in the future. That left the temporary plan with possible doubled elections as the only apparent alternative. The court says it will issue a ruling soon to help counties overcome the obstacle of last-minute voting precinct changes for this year's elections. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Federal Courthouse.
It'll cut off anyway like that. legislature did not take the necessary action to prevent these huge increases. A sad example of the district's lack of representation came into focus in the last regular session of the Alabama legislature, when the incumbent senator again failed to take action that represented the feelings of the people of District 26. This individual's weakness and failure to stand up for what was right caused a judicial pay increase of 34% in a time when far too many Alabamians are out of work. After it was learned that that Alabama's taxes would jump to the portion that they've jumped, the 100 to 150% and even more in some cases, the area's senator decided he would introduce a total political bill which he said would cut these increases. It's too late to act after taxes have been increased by better than 100%. Why didn't he stand up on his hind legs and do the things that were necessary and represent the people that elected him in Montgomery and Elmore counties when it was a time to?
Before the federal courts at the present time, and we don't know exactly where the district lines are going to be, but wherever those district lines are drawn, I plan on running for the legislature and for the House of Representatives. I believe that we have created a favorable business climate in our district, and this always leads to progress. At a time when unemployment is very high throughout the state and nation, unemployment in our district is below the national average, and of course, I am very proud of that. Could have easily been addressed in the regular session, and it would have saved the people of Alabama a lot of money. I don't know of a single legislator since that time, if I am reelected, to poll our district, to allow the people of that district to have some real input into the legislative process.
Let me talk to you briefly without boring this crowd with the rhetoric of a campaign speech. I just want to tell you that one individual, who is Sonny Callahan, wants to be lieutenant governor. The other individual wants to be governor. So that is going to be one of the key issues. You have one candidate who has legislative experience, the other one that has no legislative experience. You have one candidate with a business background and one candidate who is an attorney.
The nation is spending billions of dollars paying for the sins of the past, for years of environmental neglect. But that's just part of what the president of the Federal Reserve Bank in Atlanta, William Ford, has to say about the environment. Ford spoke in Montgomery today at the annual Alabama Community Awards luncheon sponsored by the Alabama Environmental Quality Association. Ford told the group the nation has historically ignored the needs of the environment, turning rivers into open sewers and polluting the ground with buried waste. Now Ford says more and more people and corporations are paying attention to the needs of the environment. realizing the environment must be looked after if quality life is to be sustained. Ford says the environment can be seen both from a personal and corporate level, and it extends far beyond just rivers and forest. Ford says the way people live in an area is part of the environment. Crime rates, housing conditions, educational facilities. Ford says all of these and more are part of the environment people and businesses consider before moving to a new location. And Ford had some tips for Alabama. He says though housing availability and costs are favorable compared to the rest of the nation, Alabama needs better public transportation and recreational facilities. Ford says Alabama is also weak in the arts, but despite problems with unemployment, the state is probably going to do well economically. Ford says without a doubt the biggest environmental problem in Alabama today is education, that poor quality teaching in our schools must be overcome. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News. It was the 14th annual Community Awards program sponsored by the Alabama Environmental Quality Association, and over 30 groups and individuals from around Alabama were honored for their efforts to improve Alabama communities. Winning first place in city government projects for cities with more than 50,000 residents was the Montgomery Clean City Commission for efforts designed to encourage citizens and businesses to make Montgomery beautiful. In the education division, the Montgomery Zoo Zoo Reach program took first place. That program stresses the relationships between animals and their environment. And in the corporate sustaining division, Brockway Incorporated was named AEQA Member of the Year. Brockway was honored for support of AEQA and recycling projects. Earlier in the program, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, William Ford, told the group that more and more businesses and individuals are paying attention to the environment. Ford says the nation is realizing the importance of all aspects of our human environment, including crime rates, economics, and education. Ford says Alabama has been steadily improving its human environment for the past 20 years, and with hard work, the state can continue to improve the quality of life for all its citizens. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Talk to you briefly without boring this crowd with the rhetoric of that. I'd like to introduce from Mobile Senator Sonny State and tell the people of the state of Alabama. One individual, who is Sonny Callahan, wants to be lieutenant governor. The other individual wants to be governor. So that is going to be one of the key issues. You have one candidate who has legislative experience, the other one that has no legislative experience. You have one candidate with a business background and one candidate who is an attorney.
Statewide political campaigns over the past few years. This experience is in our legislative process, the lack of which is why I'm here. Responsibility of a senator is to strongly and effectively represent the people of the district who elected him and work for the betterment of all the people. I want to emphasize that I'll consult the people that elected me. I'll never forget the people that elected me and put me in that office. Senate District 26 has been hit hard by unemployment, particularly in Elmore County. I will work with our congressional delegation, with the governor's office, with the businesses in the local areas of Elmore and Montgomery County to try to put the people back to work, to try to create some new jobs, to bring some new industry into the area. It bothers me that Montgomery County and Elmore County has been in dire need of new industry to keep people working, and there's been no real effort made to bring new industry into Elmore County. A state senator can do something about the job losses in Tallahassee, Alabama. He's got
that the governor, I don't know how effective he's been in getting it to the news media or to other people around the state about what he plans on district, to allow the people of that district to have some real. I believe that we have created a favorable business climate in our district, and this always leads to progress. At a time when unemployment is very high throughout the state and nation, Unemployment in our district is below the national average. It's before the federal courts at the present time, and we don't know exactly where the district lines are going to be. But wherever those district lines are drawn, I plan on running for the legislature and for the House of Representatives in whatever district that my home happens to be located in. I will continue.
The governor started the second week of his campaign in the beautiful setting of the Welsh Henderson House in Selma. Governor James told a receptive audience that he intended to offer his reforms during an election year and would force the other candidates for state offices to face his issues.
Now, some of these gentlemen running for governor, they've been around up to 8 years, 24 years, 30 years since I was a kid. It is time to address the issues. Now, I don't want them running from the issues. In fact, I instructed the Highway Department this morning to start building a 20-foot fence around the state of Alabama, right across the Tennessee line, just like the Great China Wall, because from what I've been reading in the newspapers, from what they are saying, they are running from the real issues like hound dogs.
Even though he hasn't announced his intentions for run, the governor indirectly attacked what he called political rhetoric, which he says candidates use to claim they've given the people of the state roads, bridges, or whatever.
That no politician ever gave them anything, and that is the truth. And this oil money, the good Lord put it underneath Mobile Bay, and the only thing that this fine legislative group did, contrary to what legislatures and other administrations have been doing for many years, they used it to buy capital assets for the people rather to enrich the bureaucracy.
But an hour later, the governor was shaking hands, meeting the folks, and kissing babies in front of the Dallas County High School, where he took time to remind the folks what his proposed oil investment plan, ratified by the legislature and the people, brought them.
From the oil lease money, we are pledging this morning $550,000 to rebuild this structure better than ever.
The governor is on a rigorous campaign trail this week that covers the northern two-thirds of the state. A campaign trail he won't confirm or deny includes his possible candidacy for re-election.
Sir, and right now we are campaigning for these special sessions, and we're totally involved in that. And as Coach Brown always said, win this Saturday's game and then start thinking about next Saturday's game. Thank you very much. I've probably got time for one more
Chris
question.
Grimshaw, WSFA TV News in Tuscaloosa.
Into your time.
Over the past few years, this experience has given strong, decisive leadership in our legislative process, the lack of which is why I'm here. Strongly and effectively represent the people of the district me and put me in that office. Senate District 26 has been hit hard by unemployment, particularly in Elmore County. I will work with our congressional delegation, with the governor's office, with the businesses in the local areas of Elmore and Montgomery County to try to put the people back to work, to try to create some new jobs, to bring some new industry into the area. It bothers me that Montgomery County and Elmore County has been in dire need of new industry to keep people working.
There were 112 cases for the illegal sale of marijuana, 22 cases for the illegal sale of cocaine, 28 cases for the illegal sale of Talwin, which is a heroin substitute, and 2 cases of illegal sale of LSD, which is as you know, a hallucinogenic mind-destroying drug. There were 4 cases made for trafficking in marijuana, 5 cases for trafficking in cocaine, 4 cases of illegal possession of cocaine, 1 case of illegal possession of Talwin, a heroin substitute, 8 cases for illegal possessions of marijuana with the intent to distribute it, 7 cases of conspiracy to sell illegal drugs, 3 cases for buying, receiving stolen property, which were drug-related and drug-connected.
As had been expected, the governor has called a special session to begin June 21st at 5 p.m. And as had been expected, the governor has included his state employee and teacher retirement reform measure and a bill to increase the layman membership of the state school textbook committee. But in a somewhat surprising move, the governor has dropped his plans to include a package of criminal law reforms. Governor James' legislative liaison, Bob Getty, says the crime package was dropped last night because of anticipated opposition that could threaten the attention the governor wants focused on his retirement reform bill. But in its place, Governor James has included a voluntary public school prayer bill. An identical bill was introduced during the last special session but never reached a House vote. Getty says the governor decided to include the bill following President Reagan's announcement last month in Washington that he intended to offer a constitutional amendment to allow public school prayer. Alabama already has a law allowing a moment of silent meditation, but this bill would allow teachers and professors to lead willing students in a specific prayer. The bill, when introduced during the last special session, had almost half the House membership signed up as co-sponsors. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
The Establishment Clause, which says that government or Congress shall pass no law establishing religion. And the purpose behind that was to prevent a union of government and religion, which in the past certainly has degraded religion and has tended to destroy government. That if this bill is similar to the bill that was introduced late in this year's session, that it would be immediately struck down by a lower federal court, and there would be really no point in appealing it.
Okay.
Local home builders say there's one good thing about rising power bills: alternatives such as insulated doors and three-way fireplaces, which can help homeowners see a savings in their monthly fuel bills.
The new doors are metal, and they're insulated, polyurethane core-filled doors, and we can produce or reproduce anything in metal that you can get in wood. The doors have an insulation value of 14.7. They won't warp, crack, split, peel. When they're up, they're up. They don't have any of the problems inherent with wooden doors. A wooden door has absolutely no insulation value whatsoever.